Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here, and I'm back with another Starcraft 2 1 versus 1 bot AI cast. We have got ourselves what should be a good one here today, as it's going to be none other than Eris taking on NegativeZero. So you know it's going to be a good one, as these two bots are, well, they're the top two bots, and that's quite clear. So it's very exciting that we get to see them play against each other. And so, ladies and gentlemen, before we get too far into this one, make sure to go ahead, click that like button if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below saying more bots if you want to see more of these bot matches. And then subscribe if you're not subscribed. And yeah, let's just see where this one goes. We do have both of these bots going for a scout. Eris looking for proxies. NegativeZero just checking out the main base of Eris and seeing that everything is normal. Scouting is a sign of very good bots, as it's not an easy thing to program in smart scouting behavior and then to react based off what you see. So both of these bots have clearly had a lot of work put into them in that regard, and are fairly bulletproof when it comes to cheese, despite the efforts of some. Now, NegativeZero does go for a low ground wall off, notably with it being a PVZ, and then a Nexus at the natural base. We get the Cyber Core, so everything is looking good here. Meanwhile, Eris just fires up, it has its second hatchery done, getting some drones on the way, and yeah, a normal macro PVZ between these two. Eris really is looking for that proxy, which is it's a little costly having that drone be out for so long. But if you're confident in your bot's macro, it's definitely better safe than sorry, as yeah, that is quite a extensive scout, as it's seen a lot of the map for sure. Now we do get a Stargate on the way from NegativeZero. Second pylon in the wall, so not having to worry about that being unpowered, I suppose. As then NegativeZero just has an Adept on the way, saving up its gas, notably not going for Warp Gate. So it's just going to be saving that gas so it can produce an Oracle as soon as that Stargate finishes up. I'm actually a little curious on the timings here as to whether it would have needed to cancel that, as it's going for a Zealot behind this. So I'm thinking that NegativeZero probably could have started up Warp Gate and then still met its Oracle timing with this build. It fires up Warp Gate as soon as the Oracle is done. However, I do believe it probably could have squeezed out Warp Gate during that. The timings are always a little muddy in these bot games because the speed mining totally changes things. Now we do have this one Adept from NegativeZero poking on in. Eris's queens are good at reacting to this, though. The third base is just about done for the Zerg, which is quite significant as well. NegativeZero moves out to secure its third base. There is a Zealot there, as that Zealot's job is to ensure expansions are, well, secure to take. Now, this Adept may find itself a drone, not quite, as it shades into the main. Lots of half HP drones, but no secured kills just yet, as some Lings do pop out and are getting on top of that Adept. The Adept narrowly makes it to the natural, but I do believe it shall meet its maker as a Queen finishes it off. And all in all, good defense from Eris. You really got to give it to Eris in the sense that, like, it didn't fire up any Lings till as late as possible, and yet it still kept that Adept at bay, which is quite impressive. The Oracle doesn't get anything done from NegativeZero, as programming Oracles does seem to be quite tricky. And yeah, we'll see if it does get anything done. They are still very useful with that revelation. Denied mining time as the drones of Eris scatter in a panic as the chickens go running. Now the Oracles do seem to try and avoid more damage once they get out of their shield range, which is interesting. Now, where'd that second one end up? I'm clicking. Okay, there they are. They're both down there. But now maybe if they group up, they'd have the potential to snipe off some drones. For now, there is a Robo-Bay on the way from NegativeZero. We've got +1 attack, an Observer going. Both these bots are just macroing very strongly. Eris is a scary beast, though. When it does macro up, it's already got its 4th base just about done. At the 5-minute mark, we're now getting that Hydra Den on the way. These 2 Oracles are still just chilling here from NegativeZero, which is interesting. I do wonder what they're waiting for. Now, Eris goes for a little bit of a Ling run by and does find itself a whopping 5 probes. The probes get conscripted into the battle, but the units were just ever so slightly out of position to help with that. NegativeZero now seems like it's planning on getting a bit aggressive. The 2 Oracles are still just chilling there. And then Hallucinated Phoenix getting sent on out. No pylon, notably, at NegativeZero's 3rd base yet, so it can't just build a battery or warp in units as quickly to defend at that location, and it may regret that, as we do have Zerglings coming on in once again. The army of NegativeZero is just sort of chilling there. The Zealot that was trying to secure the 4th base does get taken down. That's an interesting question, whether NegativeZero will bother to rebuild that, as that Zealot kind of has the job of securing the base. But this is quite painful. Eris is getting a lot of harassment damage done here, as probes are starting to go down. And then we do have the Oracles. Looks like they're trying to harass a little bit, but it's just not quite coming together. They dropped a Revelation, but then, yes, I do think the Oracles could potentially get some more damage done. But again, it's very difficult to program. I imagine NegativeZero is going to have to contend with a big old Zerg army in the near future, as Eris is already at 150 supply and climbing. We are getting cannons at that 3rd base, which is very important, much needed. So far, Eris hasn't lost a single drone this game. Seems like NegativeZero prioritizes dropping that recall on the base. I mean, it has scouted the lair, which is important, but that's kind of a given. 7 minutes into an Eris game, looks like there is the cannon done with another pylon on the way. So 2 cannons to help defend this base. NegativeZero is out on the map with its army just poking a little bit. Eris, I mean, it doesn't have that big of a force yet, so this could be a bit of a window for NegativeZero to put on some pressure. I'm a little bit scared, though, after that harassment damage was done, because Eris is just zerging in full force right now. It's at 89 drones and just pumping out units. There's a lot of Lings out. NegativeZero is so good at backing away from danger, though. The Oracles can also help cover against the Lings off of creep. There is, yeah, just that ground army poking and prodding. I'm waiting for the next evolution in the bot meta when we do start seeing bots drop stasis wards to cover the army. But there we go. The Oracles are activating their pulsar beam to help pick off some of these Zerglings. Revelation, a couple Queens of Eris wandered too far forward. I think they may have been trying to just drop some creep tumors there or something. Looks like there is a bit of a queen card driving around to help spread creep for Eris, but NegativeZero is putting the pressure on and is not giving up too easily. Where'd that Immortal end up? Did some of those units pull back? There's an Immortal around here somewhere. Okay, the army's just waltzed onto creep, and now these units are quite overcommitted. Eris is going to pull the trigger and pounce on these, which is not great. Meanwhile, there's some harassment going on the other side of the map. NegativeZero is at 138 supply, drops down a bit upon Eris taking that fight. There is 2 Colossi out, which is quite nice. Extended Thermal Lance is done, and they can just kite against this Zerg force for a long time. And that's going to be very important, because NegativeZero needs to keep this 4th base alive. There's a cannon, another cannon about to finish up, but the Protoss does abandon that 4th base, as NegativeZero takes a bit of a beating here. And then we do have some Zealots that are, I mean, they're charging forward. Colossi are still getting work done. We're now getting double Robo production going. An Immortal on the way, a Disruptor on the way. There is a 3rd Robo just finishing up for NegativeZero. However, getting knocked down to a 4th base definitely hurts. The Protoss is going to have to build up into that big death ball once again. Somehow a Colossus comes from behind. Now, a mass amount of probes do get hit by an Infestor. However, Eris will pay the price in losing that Infestor, and NegativeZero has built up to 3 Colossi, which is very significant to building a strong Protoss ground army. There's actually a 4th one out. We're getting 2 Immortals added in at a time. There's a Disruptor there too. That Disruptor is smart in order to retreat. There's a Nova getting tossed out. Doesn't connect to anything, but NegativeZero is doing a good job of keeping its units alive and growing in supply. And that's where the Protoss has success. When it builds up to that like 180 supply mark, then the fights will probably start turning its way. We're getting a whopping 4 Immortals at a time were being built for a moment. Now that can definitely be promising for NegativeZero. However, it does have to contend with the fact that there is now Vipers out, there's now Corruptors out, so some anti-air will indeed be needed as these Corruptors realize they can just kind of jump on the Colossi here, and there's actually not enough Stalkers. There's a few Stalkers down to the south. Good Disruptor hit, kills off some of those Infestors, but one of the Colossi does indeed die. Stalkers are getting on top of the Corruptors, trying to save the day. A Phoenix comes on in. NegativeZero is at 164 supply. Eris is actually quite bottlenecked by gas in this game. I guess investing in all those upgrades has eaten into its bank a little bit. We do see an Abduct on an Immortal, but there's not quite enough DPS. The loss of the Colossi really does hurt NegativeZero here, but it's still got the ridiculously strong Immortal army. 6 Immortals with +3 attack. We're now getting armor upgrades on the way. Eris just has 2-1 presently, so the upgrades are not half bad from NegativeZero. Those Corruptors are not going to be really helpful in this fight unless they turn into Broodlords, and a Greater Spire is done, but still no Broodlords. There's the first Broodlord getting morphed. That's quite important, as, I mean, they can completely turn a game around by just not being affected by these Robo-Bay units. NegativeZero does have a good amount of Stalkers. It's got a decent army supply, and it is looking to put pressure on Eris. Eris's army supply is misleading, as it does have those Corruptors, those Queens, which aren't necessarily going to partake in the fight. Lings are trying to get on top of these Stalkers, which are very far forward on creep. There's the 1 Colossi, the Immortals poking forward down the center. Stalkers kind of doing their thing elsewhere. A Zealot might be the base cleanup Zealot that finds this hatchery, as NegativeZero maybe eyes getting up a 5th base, which it will indeed need. There is now a Stargate on the way from NegativeZero, so potentially going to have some more anti-air, which will be helpful against these Broodlords. There's 12 Stalkers out to help deal with the Broods presently. That number may drop as Lings do find some of them. Now, Stalkers do blink underneath one of the Broodlords. They do not get it, but they soften it up for sure. NegativeZero producing more Colossi, adding in some Stalkers. As long as there's enough Stalkers to deal with the Broods, there is potential here for NegativeZero, and that Protoss army is maxed out. So while the Broodlords might not be easy to deal with, the rest of the Zerg ground army may just melt in the face of it. Like, there's not that much here, so we'll see. Does NegativeZero get up the courage to go for it, as there's a big fungal from Eris. That's really nice. Vipers toss down a Blinding Cloud as well. Incredible programming. Disruptor picks off an Infestor. Another one gets yoinked forward. More Blinding Clouds. So Eris's Spellcaster use is next level as the Broodlords go to work with the sieging. And the Blinding Cloud once again just removing the firepower from NegativeZero's army. There is 17 Stalkers out, which should be enough to take on these Broodlords. We'll see if NegativeZero can make the play. Most of Eris's ground army is gone, so the Broodlords can be vulnerable now. However, their Broodlings are doing a good job covering for them. Looks like one Broodlord has gone down. The Stalkers do blink after another and get it. They're now pursuing potentially all the way to this base on the right, and then they're like, oh, there's a bit of a target. And so Eris, while it had some success with those Broodlords, it was not able to break NegativeZero. This game continues on. The Protoss has secured up a 5th base during this. That base in the upper right, some mining is being denied. Lings do grab the Stalkers, though, and the Stalkers are really important at this point in the game, as there's currently 4 Broodlords against 14 Stalkers. That's a bit of an even fight, but it could easily pivot in one way or the other. Broodlords flying further forward is a little bit risky. Fungal's going down as the spellcaster usage from Eris is just next level here. The Zerg has expanded right to NegativeZero's doorstep. The Protoss army is still strong, down to 170 supply though, as both of these bots have been trading out non-stop. Broodlord's still getting some work done. I can only imagine how difficult it is to program those stalkers to smartly engage the Broodlords and not suicide all the time. NegativeZero does quite a good job of that. And it just continues to trade out. Fungals are just a constant factor in this game. NegativeZero will be breaking this base, though, it seems. And that is a big deal. Still, though, some stalkers eating fungal growth. Lots more roaches are being produced by Eris to reinforce this army. And now NegativeZero is a little bit scattered. Still, only at that 170 supply. It hasn't broke that base in the upper right. Broodlords still continue to bully NegativeZero. Stalkers trying to engage a Broodlord. Going after it. It almost goes down, and it does, so that's a nice pickoff. Still, though, more Broodlords are out. 2 on the map presently. Lots more roaches being added in by Eris, but I mean, only 2 Broodlords. I think this is actually good for NegativeZero as it gets a great engagement as Eris goes up that ramp, and that is a really good fight. And the red Zerg is just spending its money as fast as it can get it, but the trades just are not going its way. We've got 36,000 resources lost to 22,000 resources lost. Immortals now moving forward. Eris is falling in supply, losing critical units, and I think if this is the moment in which a human player, I think, would probably want to retreat, regroup, and hope for a better engagement on max supply. Eris, though, is constantly just reinforcing here and kind of feeding into NegativeZero, which is not great. It's got a very good income, but it's just not enough to maintain these trades. The fact that NegativeZero was able to get up a 5th base is a huge factor in this game. I don't even know how it did it during all that fighting, but that's the beauty of bots and their multitasking. Eris constantly trying to fight, but just getting these pickoffs is not great. It seems to have abandoned the Broodlords, and it was getting close to having that almost critical mass of Broodlords, which I think has a lot of potential against just the Stalker composition, but NegativeZero does kill off that hatchery. It wants to build one there. It'll have to hold its horses, though, for the creep to recede, but Eris does seem to just be entering that death spiral now, down to 150 supply. NegativeZero was on the ropes for quite a while, but it's been able to fight it back, and I think it's in part because it, well, it did very well against the Broodlords. I think Eris could have done with a few more Broodlords against this composition, as NegativeZero definitely was a little weak to them. But no, very well done by both of these bots. The spellcaster usage from Eris was just ridiculous. Like that one engagement where NegativeZero ate Fungal, Blinding Cloud, Fungal, that sort of thing was phenomenal. But in the end, the Protoss does trade a little too well. I think Eris may have overcommitted a bit, and that's sort of where it just kind of gets snowballed against. But this game definitely did partly come down to the fact that NegativeZero was able to get up a 5th base. No harassment or anything like that going on at such a base. And then, yeah, really well done by the Blue Protoss. A phenomenal showing by both of these bots. They really do show how they are the best. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy seeing Eris and NegativeZero play, click that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as I put out daily bot videos. Some amazing like this one, some a little bit derpy. I enjoy them all nonetheless. And then leave a comment down below saying more bots if you do indeed want to see more bots. And yeah, just big thanks to everyone that does support the channel via the YouTube membership program. It goes a long way to allowing sort of these longer casts. And I appreciate everyone that does support. Now we do have just NegativeZero cleaning everything out, as Eris does end up going down and GGing. And yeah, I think in part something that might hurt Eris a little bit. I don't know, it's tough to say because like it's never really built up that big of a bank in this game. Like maybe the upgrades hurt it a little bit, as I believe it does just get upgrades off that one spire. So it's like, okay, maybe the Broodlords or Corruptors could have benefited from some more upgrades, because what do we got right now? 2-2 against +3. And I mean, this is where things were okay for Eris. Eventually it does get +3 attack. But, I mean, these are just non-upgraded Broodlords, which is, in part, the reason why Eris's Stalkers do alright. Eventually, the Broodlords do get +1, but notably the Broodlings, they don't have any melee upgrades. And for those of you that don't know, the way Broodlord attacks work is that basically the Broodlings get shot by the Broodlord, and that damage on the initial connection varies based on the flyer attacks. Once the Broodling is landed, though, it relies on ground attacks, neither of which upgrades were great for Eris. It does eventually start getting the +1 melee. However, it's kind of starting to turn sour at this point. This looks really promising from Eris, where it's got all the Broodlords, it was landing the nice spells, and then it just maybe overcommitted a little bit. The Broodlords they kind of flew up by themselves. It's like maybe Eris would have more success if it tried to group the Broodlords with the army more. But again, it's one of those things, it's so difficult to program. And as a bot auth, you don't really want to program just for one opponent. You want to program for, well, just general good behavior. But yeah, I do think that Broodlords, they're a unit. They only can be picked off by ground units if they're not supported. And that's kind of what happened here a little bit. Let's see what happens. NegativeZero blinks forward. Broodlords, like, I mean, they deal some damage to that Stalker, but not that much. Whereas if they had better attack upgrades, who knows, maybe more Broodlords is just all Eris needed. As, like, in this position, yeah, it's 200 supply. There's 3 more Broodlords on the way. Like, it's looking pretty good here. But then it kind of tends to go a little bit sour. And I think is this where it really starts to go wrong? Like, Eris is attacking in, it's got a lot of supply and building roaches and Broodlords. What else? Like, where's the rest of its stuff? Like, Eris does have 93 drones, 8 queens out. Yeah, maybe that's another thing. Like, Eris has 8 queens. It's actually building another one for some reason at this point, as I guess it's lost 7. So it does bring the queens to the front lines, which is good. And yeah, it's got 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. It does have 38 larvae, so maybe that's something that would benefit Eris too in the late game. Have a larva threshold and then send the queens to the front lines, because like in this scenario, like when you're on 8 hatcheries, you don't really need to inject with the way bots play. Like, humans need to inject because they lose all their army, then try and rebuild it all at once. Bots just are consistent with that macro. And so I don't think Eris, like, that's maybe why Eris lost this fight. Like, there wasn't that much supply here for the Zerg, it seemed. Like, it's got 5 Broodlords out, 7 queens, and then just that very high drone count hurts it. But the queen supply definitely hurts. It's building 13 roaches at a time, and so its supply is misleading. And then NegativeZero starts to have some success. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy the longer sort of breakdown and sort of analysis at the end of games, let me know, as I do find it very interesting as to why bots lose certain matches. And yeah, it definitely was a good one. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for tuning in.